And Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Blakely.
Yes.
Dryden.
Here.
Gaspar.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Lowe. Stoops. Drummer.
Here. Mrs. Locke, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Of course. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
And Dr. Hinton, are there any items to be removed or added to the agenda tonight?
There are not.
Right. And Kathy, do we have any pink sheets for public comments tonight?
Do not.
All right. I do see that Amy's here tonight. Welcome. It's an intimate gathering.
Well, hello everybody, and you'll have to forgive me because I have a couple months worth of things, but I tried to condense it. Anyway, I do want to just welcome back all of the teachers and students. I was at registration this morning and I saw Tina there for my incoming freshman and my incoming senior, and it looked like everybody was well rested or happy. And I'm going to welcome the 20 or so new teachers tomorrow at new teacher induction, so I'm excited for that. I do have a couple of updates that I wanted to make you all aware of from over the summer, and then a couple of issues that we're going to be working on right now for BEA, and then that's about it. But we did have a really busy summer. I personally had a really busy summer with IEA. In June, I attended the IEA recommendation hearings for people running for state office. And just to let you know, because it's important for people to understand that anytime somebody runs for office, whether it's state, national, or the presidential one, the IEA sends out a questionnaire to everybody who's running, asking about their views on educational issues and policies. They look at their track record. If they don't have a track record, then they look at their statements. They invite them into these recommendation hearings, and then afterwards, they all leave, and the local presidents and other leaders discuss the merits, discuss their electability, and then make recommendations or not. So it's completely nonpartisan. We recommend both Republicans and Democrats, and we did that in June in Naperville for the Illinois House and Senate, and when I went to the NEA Representative Assembly in DC, Hillary Clinton came and spoke to the 9,000 teachers there. NEA had done that in the fall, which I thought was kind of early for them, but they did that in the fall in the exact same process. So they really are kind of blind to whatever your party is, but they do look at how you act on education stuff. So I just want to kind of throw that out there because it's a really important process that we do when there's election year. So that was in June. We did go to the Representative Assembly in DC. I went with Todd Swanson, Deb Nielsen, newly retired, and Cheryl Cole. They were the other representatives there. And I also was reelected to the National Resolutions Committee, which we write the belief statements for the organization, that everything that NEA does has to align with the belief statements. So it's kind of an English nerd dream job because it's a lot of wordsmithing, but it's an important job. So I'll be doing that for 3 years. And late July, I went to Summer Leadership Academy in Bloomington Normal with 7 BEA members who will be our negotiations team this year. Half of them are new members to the team, half of them are veteran members to the team. So we'll be working on that pretty soon. So I wanted to let you guys know that. And lastly, updates over the summer-wise. I did announce at Summer Leadership Academy, and I know I talked to Steve about it here, I'm running for an NEA director position, which, just to let you guys know what that is and how it will affect me here, hopefully it won't, but it is one of 7 positions that Illinois IEA members have on the NEA Board of Directors. So if I were to win, and the election is in late March at the IEA Representative Assembly, if I were to win one of those spots, I would no longer serve as region chair, but I would do this instead. And basically what it means is I would be kind of up a level on how I would serve. It's a national level rather than a state level. So I'd be sitting on the NEA board. I'd get to lobby Congress 3 or 4 times a year like I was able to do in February. and really kind of advocate for students and teachers that way. So I'm going for it. We'll see what happens, but I want to make you aware. I would still be doing my half-time teaching, BBA president, none of that would change. So just the duties are different, and I think cooler, so hopefully that'll work. And then a couple of things at the local level. As the teachers are getting ready to come back to their classrooms, BEA is trying to be proactive. I've been working with Lisa on this, but we have class size review committee meeting on Thursday for the kindergarten at Hoover Wood, and then we had another request come in today, so fingers crossed we can get them both on the same day. Otherwise, we'll be meeting with them because obviously class size is still one of the biggest concerns that teachers have, and we all know that having smaller class sizes, staying within the guidelines really helps us to do what's best for kids. It helps kids to be successful, and we want to try and work out some of these proactive solutions there. So that's one thing. We did do the negotiations training at Summer Leadership Academy, but I have been speaking with Steve about the possibility of doing the IBB training a little bit early this year, trying to get the ball rolling and seeing what we can do to be proactive with our negotiations as well. And then I have one other issue that BEA is really concerned about, and I wanted to bring it to your attention because this has caused a lot of distress in our organization, and it happened over the summer, so I don't know the full fallout yet, but it is in regards to the activity funds account money that was transferred over in the June board meeting. And just to give you a little bit of background, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot in SMT, in spring, senior management discussed with BEA officers taking 90% out of all the activity counts and then leaving 10% in there. And we had come to an agreement that that was not going to happen, that we had time, that we were going to put in a communications plan and a process for people if they needed the funds for the next year to request those. And they did not take the 90% of funds out. It was, I'm sure you know you got the list, like I got the list, but the funds, $155,000 odd were transferred over with the rest of the $1 million to the field project, and that was done without that communication to the activity fund sponsors and the system in place to request, because we were told it would be done like maybe the fall, you know, that some of it was going to go, and I know the student activities director at the high school was very, very upset about it and tried to work through it and didn't get a response, and she ended up stepping down from that position, which I think is a great loss. And I don't know how the rest of the people who may not be aware of their fund situation are going to feel about it when they find that out. So I just wanted to point that out because I know it was over the summer. I know communication is harder. I was out of town a lot. It's difficult, but it does not build trust and it does not build good relationships when stuff like that happens. So I know that's going to be one of the big issues that we talk about. And it's something that we really do have to figure out how to go forward from in the best way that protects the activity accounts and like the kids who fundraise the money for whatever club and you know that sort of thing. So, and I do understand too, because I know backstory wise, a lot of those funds weren't being used or they didn't have, you know, they were things that hadn't been used in a couple of years or whatever. That's kind of not all of the funds though, and I know that I just wanted to bring that up to you. So I'm rambling now, so I'll stop. Last but not least, and to end on a positive note, I did want to just let you know that we do have a very special guest coming on our opening day, August 22nd. Cinda Clicknow, who is the president of IEA, is going to come and talk at our BEA VESPA meeting. We're actually inviting them this year for that, and then I'm going to have a lunch for her afterwards. You are welcome to come to the lunch afterwards. It's going to be at the high school. The meeting itself is our general meeting, so it's members only, but I'm hosting the executive board and the VESPA officers, so feel free to stop by, say hi to Cindy. She's a wonderful person and a great leader. And that's about it. I do wish all educators, students, their families, staff, a great school year. I'm looking forward to it. So thank you. Thanks for everything.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay, next we don't have student ambassadors with us tonight, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Steve, could you please read?
It's a brief one.
Anna?
We have the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, the regular and closed minutes from July 19th, as well as our personnel report, and that is the consent agenda. I do have, I don't think we mentioned this at the beginning, so I apologize. There is one change in the personnel report. It's an FMLA request. Monica Hubble's FMLA is going to be reduced from 20% of the school day to 4%. It's actually 4.5% of the school day. So 4.5% of the school day.
Is what is being requested 4.5%?
Correct.
School day.
What is,
Can you explain what that means?
Well, FMLA is the is something that is federal law that we all have to follow, the Family Medical Leave Act, and a teacher can request intermittent FMLA up to 20% of their workday by law. So originally her request was going to be 20%, and she sent me the proper documentation to change it to 4.5%
So what's that come out to?
Yeah,
It's
what
a
is
small
4.5?
accommodation,
20 minutes.
essentially.
It's 400, a middle school teacher works 460 minutes. She will be working 440.
So she asked you for what she actually needs as opposed to flat out maximum.
Correct, it was adjusted on her behalf.
I just wondered what 4.5% was.
That's what it equates to, 20 minutes per day for 182 days.
All right.
And Steve, I had one board member question that I forgot to ask you in advance. So the seasonal workers, will we see all of them coming to the board to be released as they're...
Eventually,
finishing up
yes,
their tour
eventually,
duty?
yep.
Okay.
We're following Mark Anderson's lead on that. If you recall, last year, we did it well into the spring, and this year we decided we're going to accelerate that, and when they leave
On
and
their
go
last
off to
day.
their next, to college or wherever they're going, then we'll have them at that time reported.
Excellent. Any other questions? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the one change for Monica Hubble going to 4.5% of her school day instead of 20%.
So moved.
Moved by Dryden, second by Locke. Kathy, could you please call the roll?
Dryden,
Yes.
Gaspar,
Yes.
Locke,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Blakely,
Yes.
Dremmel.
Yes. Next, we'll be moving on to the report section of our agenda. Dr. Richards.
First, you could see there were 2 FOIA requests that we responded to in the past few weeks since we've had a board meeting. Any questions on those? And secondly, kindergarten timeline. I asked Brad to put a report together to talk to you about that timeline.
Sure. So last year we had discussions about full-day kindergarten, and we explored one model of just doing that for all students that requested full-day. We are required by school code to offer half-day kindergarten. So at the board level, at several occasions, we talked about what that would look like, what are the steps involved in it, the cost, potential costs involved in that, and did some estimates. There was not consensus by 4 board members to move forward with that. But at our June planning meeting, because this is a topic of interest and there are other models to explore, there was consensus at that June board meeting to explore what a pay-for-service model would look like. So I didn't want to let too much time go by before we had a timeline for what that would look like. So I developed a very rough timeline for what it would take if the board wanted to take this action with a pay-for-service model that would be implemented in the 2017-2018 school years. Not this school year, but the following school year. It would be a very ambitious timeline for me to properly get that done, but I wanted to provide the board, and I would take any feedback at this time about that timeline.
On the August, early September part, you said define the project parameters and scope of work. Who would be involved with that? Is it just you?
That would probably be me to start out with, but I would have to seek counsel from those more familiar with the actual implementation of kindergarten, the kindergarten teachers, in order to make sure that I had the correct scope of work. So there are lots of pieces that I know need to move, but there will be other things that kindergarten teachers can better identify. So, with a half-day program, many teachers got rid of I'm going to get very much into the minutia here, but some kindergarten teachers got rid of their kitchens where kids did play activities. They might need those, and I would need to find that out. So there would be some materials, and they would help me in that process.
Where it says notify the park district, is there kind of, I know within the agreement that we have, there is a set date, right? So that
Right.
that has to be abide by. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure on that. The March 2nd, the kindergarten preview communication, and mine cut off, and I can't remember what it was.
It would be
What would
getting
that to be?
knowing who wants full day and who parents would
Okay.
need to, at that time, probably around that time, let us know whether they're requesting full day or just half day.
And then on the last one, when you say the Board of Education would set the fees for full-day kindergarten, I'm assuming you would have some examples or some ideas instead of us just coming up with a number.
In the proposal, I'll put numbers, but because the board, for the past couple of years, has reviewed all school fees and adopted them kind of at one time, so we did that this year, I thought, I'm not going to ask you to approve something and then it might change and we might have greater clarity, so I said we wouldn't know final numbers on school fees, and that would be a school fee in this pay-for-service model, and we'd adopt them all around the same time in April.
We
So
would
what's the
need
base
to give-
registration
I-
fee, what's the
yeah,
kindergarten?
I would
We would
almost
need
rather-
to give
Hold on. We got two
people
people going.
on the March 2nd date, like if I was thinking about sending my child to full-day kindergarten, I don't have one, thank goodness, but I would have to have some idea of what that fee was going to look like. I'd be happy not knowing the exact number.
Hopefully we'd have a
Maybe.
good idea by the October 18th when we decide, because
Right.
I would like that number.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that will be in the proposal,
But I'm
but,
just,
you know,
I
things
don't want parents
change.
just going, sure, I'll sign, I mean, because I don't think.
I would
know I
definitely,
wouldn't be able to sign up for it unless I had a rough idea within a few dollars, you know.
Jen, you were gonna.
Plus, I think we need to know a number.
We
We're
would,
making-
okay, according to this timeline, we would have to pull the trigger and say yes or no on October 18th.
Yes.
And then in April, we would set the fees.
My biggest concern with
Well,
the...
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Just give me just a second here. I would, if we were to proceed on this, I would like to have the fees voted on separately from the rest of the student fees. I would like to have two separate votes. I wouldn't want to put it in a package and vote up or down on it.
Is the date an issue, John, if we
No,
had a general?
just no, it would just be how the
separate out
vote would
two
go.
votes?
Yeah, and if that,
Okay.
you know, if we could do it that way, if we decided to proceed with this. This is, to me, a very, very, very big deal. This is a very big undertaking. And it's not something that I would want to lump in with student activity fees or anything else. I think this is something that we should take seriously by itself, if we decide to proceed with it. That's my 2 cents. Thanks.
So what I was going to say is my concern with the being presented October 4th and then voting on it October 18th is, based on the little amount of experience that I have on this board, is we tend to have a lot of questions after a proposal is made, and then no time to discuss what we find out afterwards. I'm concerned that we're not going to be ready to vote immediately the next meeting after hearing that proposal. I'm not necessarily objecting to having another meeting to discuss any questions that we have, but I am concerned with that timeline just based on past experience.
So Brad, would we either be able to do at the September 20th meeting, that's kind of pushing things, or would it be easier to push it back to November 8th for the actual vote? No, we don't have a meeting on November 8th, that's election day, November 15th. Is that too late? And we're pushing it almost a month back. We have a weird schedule for those months.
My concern, and the reason I crafted it in this way, is because it is going to take a lot of staff time together to move the curricular pieces. Because we can't just take our current half-day kindergarten model and say, now you're going to do it for 6.5 hours. There really has to be some thought, and I need kindergarten teachers to be a part of that process, And when you have 12 people a part of any process, it's a slow process that's very thoughtful. So I'm just looking to get as much time as possible if the board does move in this direction. And I agree with Mr. Dryden here. This is a lot to move in a short amount of time. So I was looking to buy as much time for me to work out all of the details and work with staff to get ready for this change, because it is a big change. So that was the way I had it. I do understand the need to be thoughtful in your decision making, but I was looking at more selfishly for myself and actually getting it ready.
Well, I don't think that's a selfish thing. I think that if we're going to take on something this big, that it's better to go slow, deliberate, make sure the pieces have been moved, make sure we know what we're doing rather than try to rush it, jam it, and get it done. And I mean, you know, this is a big deal. We don't want to build a rocket ship in a short period of time here. You know, we want to get it right. So my feeling is we don't try to rush the timeline. We give ourselves as much time as we need, and if that means we can't complete it going into next year, that we do it right for the following year. A well-built program.
Is that okay with you, Brad?
I would, that actually gives me less of a sense of panic around this whole thing, because I do feel like I could engage staff in a more meaningful process, but I wanted to present a more ambitious timeline because that seemed to be where that conversation was going. But I'd be happy to do whatever the board agrees.
I mean, I think, and well, what everybody's saying, but I think where the ambition might have come in, and this is just my opinion, is that the board really wanted to see this happen.
Right.
So
But it
I
wasn't
think,
a specific time.
yeah, I think it was just really wanting this to move forward, but I agree that it shouldn't be rushed so that we do it right. I think that's how I feel. It was the importance of really wanting to take full day kindergarten and see what we could do with it.
So Brad, can you revise the schedule and bring it to us at the next board meeting with maybe a longer schedule that might realistically push us back one school year, but give you the opportunity to engage staff? Because I think that's really important to all our board members, is that staff has the opportunity to weigh in with you, and so that we do a really good job.
Just in talking to staff, there's all sorts of great ideas out there that our kindergarten and early educators have about what this could look like. I want to honor their ideas and explore that a little bit. What I might suggest is not just a different timeline, but let's look at a proposal in October. So I would still bring it, and then the board can make determinations about how fast or how slow we want to move. But I'll have information in the proposal about the pieces and the amount of work that it would take to move those pieces, like curriculum or supplies or those types of things. So
you would
we'll kind of just chop off the bottom of that. We'll still get it to you in October so that you can see what this might look like, and then I'll take direction from the board, and I'll give you some feedback from the teachers as well about how quickly we could move.
Okay.
And then we'll kind of build a timeline together based on you seeing the proposal.
Okay.
Would it be worth,
Wait, Jen,
Please.
1 second.
would it be worth exploring, like doing some sort of like a pilot program next fall? You know, like having, you know, I mean.
But I think part of the concern there,
everybody
and Jen, I'm
at
sorry,
least
I'm interrupting you, I
one-on-one.
actually meant for you to go first. But is, I think you want the time to really thoughtfully prepare, so if we were ready to run a pilot, we'd probably be ready to roll it out and then edit whatever we needed to. But I think the concern is that there's so many ideas and really wanting to do it right, that being ready to run a pilot might not even be the time. John?
Good on the proposal if you want to do that in October. My thought is the way the public will respond to this is once the presentation is made, I'm going to call that period right following the lobbying period, prior to us making any kind of decision. So we may want to, you know, here's the proposal, take some time, think about what we got. Right, yeah. Slower on this, I think, is better than faster.
Everyone good with that?
Well, I wanted to throw a couple things out if I can, and I know we've talked about it, and I'm up for a vote on this that I'm going to bring up again, but I agree with John in the sense that I think this is rushing it a little bit too much, and I'd rather do it right for something that a lot of parents want, some teachers want, and even some board members want to do it hopefully the right way. the thing that I would like to see, and I know we've talked about it, and again, I'll go with a vote. I'd like to see a comparison, though, with what the full day would be without the pay. And the reason I ask that, again, is because we keep hearing about, well, it's going to be a financial strain, but we don't know what that financial strain is. I've never really had true numbers. We're talking about enrollment going down, which I agree to. But then if you're going to talk about reduction in staff, sometimes that reduction in staff can be changed over to when you implement a full day with the numbers and so on. So I think there could be a mix with how this goes, and it gives a better idea on what the full-day kindergarten, even with pay, is compared to otherwise. Like I said, I'm just throwing that out there. I just would like to, for me personally, see a comparison. Yes, would be willing to spend the money on this, and I've always said that, compared to new programs, because it's something we had, and I think it's something we should never have gotten rid of, but it did. So I'd be willing to do it that way, but as long as it's done the proper way. So I would leave it up to the president to decide on.
What John is asking is, we did discuss this at length in our retreat, and I think that for most of us, we were all very interested in moving forward with some sort of kindergarten model, but I think the consensus was that it would require changes in our current programming, and no one was ready to do that. But I guess it's a good time, if we're moving forward with this, to make sure that everyone is still in that place. Do we want to make changes to it? Are we willing to make changes to our current programming to pursue a model that would not have fee-based?
I thought we did see numbers.
We saw rough numbers, yes, of what it would cost.
Those were rough enough.
I mean, I would assume that if we're going to create a fee-based program, we're going to have the cost associated with it come with it. So we'd be able to just say, this would be the cost of the district if we don't charge fees. This is going to be what the fees pay for. So I would assume that we were going to get those numbers whether we want them or not.
I think the difference is we wouldn't see how programming would change. And I actually think that's one of the things John wants to explore. Is he would like to see how programming would change.
How would we pay for that?
By changing, by cutting something,
okay.
Whatever. So, and like I said, at our retreat.
It's possible, it's possible you might not even have to do some cutting. Don't know. I mean, that's why you're going to do all this work. I don't think it's adding that much just to see if you are thinking down the road of making reduction in staff, if that somehow could be turned around and so on. I'm just throwing it out there as trying to think outside the box a little bit to figure this out. So it gives me a little bit of, if I do this and I just look at the one number here, then that's all I have to go by.
Right.
I don't have something else to go by.
But I think administration did say that we'd have to reduce programming in other areas. And I think that was where we all landed, that we are interested in full-day kindergarten, but at that time, there was not a consensus that we wanted to look at where we could reduce programming. So if anyone has changed their mind, or we have a consensus that we do want to look at that, this is the time to speak up before we direct Brad to continue on the path that we had originally given him.
If I can just,
Yeah?
first of all, I want to apologize for running late. My wife wasn't around, so I couldn't just leave my 8-year-old at home until my middle child was home to watch her. Back on the 26th of January, we did start talking about numbers on this. So I'm sure, John, if you wanted to go back at January 26th, when we were presented with full-day kindergartening, they had funding and modeling showing what our former system is, paid model system is going to be, what we're eliminating, how many bilingual classes we're adding, how many kids per class, how many FTE, and costs.
Right, I remember that.
Measuring long-term benefits, discontinuing the STAR program, discontinuing Park District enrichment, which showed us like incurring a total cost without having it be fee-based of $677,512. With a one-time cost of $120,484, right? And I'm just commenting on my notes. I'm trying to understand, what are you exactly trying to see if because that's right there per year, plus 5% increase per year on, teacher costs and enrollments and numbers like that. What are you trying to see if we don't do a fee-based model versus a non-fee-based model?
But those numbers were basically rough numbers, and I understand that.
So you add 100,000 here and there, what else are you
But that's what I'm
looking
saying
for?
though, but when you start talking about it, when you're actually going at this route, then if they actually put it together. That's what I'm trying to do, is get a true comparison at that time, not something that's projected down the road, and you're just assuming. That's all I'm,
Right.
like I said, if it's not what anybody wants to do, I'm fine with it. I'm just bringing it up again since we are talking about it. I understand the numbers. I might disagree with some of those numbers, and I might say, well, maybe there's other ways of pulling those numbers. That's what I'm trying to get at, so.
And that's what we're talking about.
And
It's
that's
changing
all
the-
I'm saying. I'm not arguing, I know the numbers, I've gone through it, I looked at it, I just think they're rough, and I don't know if I would.
I mean, they're rough for when they were presented to us. Do you expect a 5 to 10% increase one way or the other?
I don't know.
Do you expect a 50% increase one way or the other? I am positive, and I have full faith in our staff, that they're going to be able to give us a more fine-tuned focus on this without a plus or minus, you know.
50%.
Yeah, I mean, they gave us, this is a 5% increase year over year with a timeline, or with, you know, a one-time out of 124.84. That's 7 months ago. Of course, it's going to change in the next few months, but I mean, I just feel the way you brought it up, John, is that it kind of seemed like we don't know. We have been given this information when we initially started this in January. We do know, we have known, we also should have faith that we know that the numbers are going to change also. So I mean, I felt uncomfortable like making it seem like we all have not been informed
No,
of
and
what
if
the
it came
numbers
across
are.
that way, I apologize.
Yeah, and I think-
It's not the way it was meant to, because I've been in contact with Kathy
Right.
on this, and
This has
that's not
been-
the way it was supposed to have come out.
This has been a passionate topic of John's, and so out of respect for that, we recognize that he would love, I mean, that, he has talked about that from the beginning, and I think it's only fair that he gets to bring it up and maybe sway the board before we move forward. I don't think you did it, John. So, but
would love to
value
be
try.
recommended.
I didn't hear anyone saying yes. I want to see what it looks like.
And I said I'm fine with it.
Right, so any more discussion on this? I think Brad's given us a timeline. He's told us he's going to bring a proposal back, and we'll be able to speak at length moving forward.
But are we saying that we're doing like a pushback one meeting for discussion on the proposal?
Brad said that we won't take a vote on the proposal. He'll bring us a proposal, and then we'll hash out moving forward what it really looks like.
So
he
then this
said-
timeline isn't set in stone.
The only part is the first part of that till October.
Right.
And then
Right.
together, I think, based on the discussion we have, the questions that we have, if there's need for further information that the board needs before making a decision, you know, we'll factor those things in together and kind of craft out what's a realistic timeline.
So are we definitely looking at the 18, 19 school year?
I think that'll be a discussion point as a part of looking at that proposal, whether that's doable for 17, 18, or whether it might need to wait to 18, 19, or whether we're not going to do that at all.
Okay. Further questions?
I want to thank you ahead of time for the work you're about to put into this. I know right now this is going to be a pretty close board vote, whichever way it goes. So the time and effort that the staff that you put into this, I know you'll do it diligently. And you know what? At the end of the day, we can't make a rational decision until that work goes into it. So thanks for what you're about to do. No guarantees in the end, right?
Right?
Okay.
Enjoy the education. All right, any last questions or comments on the kindergarten timeline? Everyone's comfortable with how we're moving forward? All right, we're moving on to the action portion of our agenda. Policy report, Dr. Hitchens.
So the policy report, we just got a new episode. It is like, it would be great if it was like a video episode, much more
Really
interesting.
entertaining.
Too much nothing.
Right, so we got a new press update that comes about quarterly, but they're not really on any set schedule, but this one's quite lengthy, so we do like to spread these out so you're not looking at 30 policies all at once, but I did send you guys your new passwords to log in if you did want to look to see what's coming. So on today's agenda, we have 4 updates that we would like you to vote on tonight. I know it's your first time seeing them, but they're directly from press and they're not substantial. They are grammatical changes, they're slight changes to phrases. Those would be those 4 270 vacancies to the school board, filling vacancies, a little clarity about the timeline there. English learners, student rights and responsibilities, and search and seizure. These 4 come directly from press, and so if you're up to it, we would looked for adoption of those 4. If you do have questions, we could always put that off, no hurry. And then the other one, I'll ask Brad to talk about, because this one is being recommended not from press. Some of the changes are from press, but do you want to talk about the background of the 7100?
Sure. I worked with Lori Carbonell, who worked with the nurses, the RNs at our buildings. We regularly review our health procedures and policies with them because things change quite frequently based on their experiences with parents. We took press, but we also modified press because we wanted it to be very clear to our family and our community that we do practice for everyone's safety first day exclusion in the district. This is not a new practice, but we wanted to be crystal clear that we practice first day exclusion in Batavia. So it doesn't really apply to your vision or your dental exams, but if we don't have proof of those medical immunizations and those pieces, we exclude on the first day. It's very rare, but it does happen. We just wanted that to be crystal clear to our families. There's also a new immunization. This is part of what press, and we tried to tweak the wording of it because it was confusing in the press version, related to meningococcal immunizations, which are now required. So just 2 little changes. We thought it was for clarity, but I wanted to not put that on a first reading adoption, but first reading in discussion if the board is okay with the tweaks we made to that.
And we can guide families who don't have financial resources to places that they can get these, correct? We have supports for that.
They do it, if you're paying attention to our communications, they do a great job because they do it here at our schools. So you don't have to go to.
You're right.
So they do mobile health clinics, and they do it within our schools, and the nurses are great about getting that out to our families. I really appreciate, that's a lot of extra work, but they do it because, some families have trouble accessing medical care, or they have trouble with transportation, which is a big barrier for some families in getting their medical appointments.
I was going to ask, I think you clarified it, but elementary schools to grade schools, they don't have doctors and stuff come in and do free eye exams or dentists, like some school districts do.
We don't do it in each school, but we'll do it in like an elementary school, the middle school, and the high school. So like big centers, and parents can bring their kids to those centers where they can get physicals, and then they can also access medical care for immunizations. So they do a really nice job with that.
There are programs too that are available for the dentist.
Yeah, the public health system is pretty
Right.
good in King County.
More questions on those policies?
Are we talking about both right now, or the?
We can
first
just
one?
discuss both, John, and then move on to taking a vote on the second group if we're ready.
Yeah, if you're splitting them out, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So second group, first group?
Well, we can ask questions on either group if you have them. Everyone's being rather quiet, so.
Okay. So if I might just then, in that, if no one has another question on the first group, under instruction, the English language learners, it looks like we're just striking the word language, more or less.
You're right. The new nomenclature to identify those students are English learners, not English language learners. So it's just a change.
So if you learned ELL, it's now EL.
So it's not just, so how to drink tea, eat crumpets, right, okay, just. And under student rights and responsibilities, we've got a tweak here about, it looks like school prayer.
That is a clarification on when it's okay for school prayer, but it defines non-instructional time. It clarifies that
Right.
in the press version as to when that might happen during
Right.
non-instructional time, not teacher-led,
Right.
student-led.
The kind of distinction as I get it, rather than it's more clearly defining that it's appropriate to pray maybe in the hall during passing period as opposed to right in the middle of reading Animal Farm in class. I have that more or less correct?
Animal Farm, that's a good example. I
Well,
taught that
it's
like 25 times, so I can,
Right.
I'm just picturing in my head when students.
Please, God, don't make me read this book again. Search and seizure under students' rights, which you all know I'm very interested in. This is all boilerplate, not much changes here until we get down to the password. This was the significant change, which I found curious.
I'm sorry,
It's
where,
almost
John?
like, sorry?
I'm sorry, where? Password
I'm
protection?
under the student, it's the very last item in this section.
Page
It's
8.
under students' search and seizure, and you have to scroll down almost to the end of this until you get to the relevant thing.
The social networking and all that.
Right, and it's almost like, you know, we have this very broad, the courts have upheld this very broad liberty about searches, which is if the school authority has reasonable, it's the actual language, reasonable suspicion's not the term, I'm sorry.
Concern.
Cause?
Reasonable cause, yes, actually, I think that's correct, to believe that a law or a school rule is broken, they have the right to search. And that's a very broad definition, but the courts haven't changed much on that for years and years and years. And we get down to the password thing. On that last page there, and it's saying that school officials may not request or require a student or his or her parent guardian provide a password or other related account information to gain access to the student's account or profile on a social networking website. And what they've essentially done is dropped the reasonable cause. So it's almost like for password, there's a different standard.
But we can't ask for
right,
it.
You're
they
just not
changed
allowed to
it
ask
We
to
need you to
180.
cooperate in this.
We can't ask for
You might,
password.
we might ask you to pull up it, but we're not going to ask you to reveal your password so
Right.
we can get in it.
Right. So,
But we are allowed to ask them to show us your Facebook page
We
if
would,
for some
we
reason.
would ask them if it's a part of an investigation to
Right.
cooperate with us
right, but,
in that process.
but it's a completely different and much stricter standard, and I found that quite interesting. And I have nothing else to say about that.
Quite frankly, we don't want those passwords, 'cause I can tell you what happens in reality is we find way too much stuff and
I
nobody
shouldn't
wants to go
think you
there.
would, I shouldn't think you would. I just thought it was interesting that there was a
Exactly.
completely different legal standard for that.
That's called a week of your life, and you
Right.
don't know it outside the
Right.
district while you investigate that.
Okay. So I've got my clarification, thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions? Let's go for the policies for first reading and adoption. Does anyone have any questions about those? No? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to engage in a first reading and adoption of changes to 270 vacancies on the school board, filling vacancies, 6160 English learners, 7130 student rights and responsibilities, and 7140 search and seizure.
So move.
That was kind of a jinx. Was that Lou?
Second.
Moved by Locke, second by Will. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Locke.
Yes.
Lowe.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Blakely.
Yes.
Dryden.
Yes.
Gaspar.
Yes.
Drell.
Yes. All right, and then we will be bringing the vaccination and immunization, health, eye, and dental examinations policy back for a second reading and adoption at our next policy action item.
And then on this one also, you could see that there are some exhibits and administrative procedures that I've attached. Basically, over the years, we sometimes create our own exhibits, and there were some exhibits in here that we weren't using anymore, so I thought we should delete the ones that that you're not using anymore. And the ones that I'm recommending that we replace them with are all the press versions. There were some that were just really specific about the way that you do a self-evaluation at the end of every meeting, and it's not anything that we followed, so I didn't want it in our policy. But if there is something, if you'd like to bring that back, there isn't a version of it in press, but we could revisit it. But I don't like having something in there that says that we do this procedure and we don't. And then one of them is closed to the public, which is why this attachment is closed to the public, and that's just filling the school board vacancy, because our interview questions are in there. Should there ever be a vacancy not tied to an election, then we would get to appoint, you would get to appoint another board member, and we have the interview questions in a closed document, right? Any questions on the exhibits or suggestions?
Looks good to me. Anyone else? Just a reminder, we don't vote on those. Those are for our information, but administration is happy to entertain questions or comments or suggestions.
Definitely.
Okay. Then I believe we're moving on to tentative budget. Tony, Mr. Lacy.
So it's that time of year. We are a month and a half, well, not quite, but a month into fiscal year 2017. We're presenting our tentative budget to you this evening, and we'll ask for your action for you to place that budget on public display, which must be for 30 days prior to adoption. We'll also set the hearing date. We are required to hold a public hearing. That hearing will be held on August 23rd, and then the final adoption will happen on September 20th. It's required by law that the board adopt the budget by the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year, so that would be the end of September. So it's just how we roll in Illinois. We start the year spending money without actually having a budget. But we do have a plan, and I want to go over some highlights with you this evening of the tentative budget, and then I would be happy to entertain any questions that you have. So I'm going to walk you briefly through the highlights of some of this document. It's a little lengthy. It's almost 60 pages and not 60 pages. And I'd like to start on page 4, which is a summary of the budget and all of our governmental funds. And as I speak, I've asked Sue to kind of trail along with me to display what I'm talking about so that folks can follow along. But you certainly can also follow along with the document that's available on the website, and many of you have printed copies. The summary of budget shows all of our funds in 2 types of funds. There are operating funds and non-operating funds. Essentially, the operating funds are the funds that we use to do our daily business with, and the non-operating funds either pay debt or capital projects. So operating funds would be our education fund, our operations and maintenance fund, our transportation fund, and our IMRF fund, which is for Social Security and levies for Social Security and to pay pensions for IMRF employees. You can see there on page 4 under revenues, the total revenues across all funds is nearly $88 million, with a little over $9 million in non-operating funds, which is essentially taxes levied to pay off bonds and interest on bonds, and then $78 million in operating funds that come from local, state, and federal sources. A little further down, we have another form of revenue that's not quite a revenue, but we treat it as a quasi-revenue. We're transferring money from the operations and maintenance fund to the capital projects fund to fund capital projects. That's where we're keeping track of capital projects there now. Because capital projects are pretty large, and we've got some more large projects on the horizon that are about $1 million each. We're implementing a new practice that we're transferring money out of O&M to capital projects, because these projects span multiple fiscal years, and our funding for them might not necessarily match our spending. So just put that in your mind for a second. I'll come back to it in a moment. But we're transferring essentially $1.6 million into the capital projects fund in this particular line that I'm talking about. So the total financing sources is $89.5 million. When we get into expenditures, total expenditures total $88.6 million across operating and non-operating funds, and non-operating $12.1 million, in operating $76.5. Those span all of the various types of functions that we spend money on. It's either instruction, supportive instruction, community services, payments to other governmental units, or oftentimes those payments are tuition for the Valley, special education, Fox Valley, our Career Center, payments that we might make to the STEM school, those sorts of things that we pay essentially tuition for students. Could be tuition for
special education students who might be in private placements, those sorts of things. And then also for debt service, so the debts that we owe in bonds and the interest on those bonds. Moving a little further down, you'll see other financing uses. You see that $1.6 million again, that would be the money coming out of the operations and maintenance fund. It's going to the capital projects fund. And then contingency. And contingency is a set aside essentially for unexpected expenditures. You won't ever see money spent out of contingency. We just kind of put money there as a placeholder, because when we spend contingency, we transfer the budget amounts to the actual function or object that we're spending the money on. Essentially, we're saying, hey, there are things that will come up. Surely there's probably going to be students that have special education needs that move into our district. We have a $100,000 contingency in that $439,000 for that, in case that might happen. We have $100,000 in the transportation fund, half of which would be for a fuel escalator. If in the event that fuel costs increase, we'll have to pay our bus company more money for the costs of that fuel. So we can put in contingency $50,000 for that. But we also might have to add bus routes. Students might move in, or certain bus routes, we get deeper into the school year, we realize that certain bus routes just aren't going to work. We've got some money set aside for that. We've also got $200,000 set aside for general things in the education fund. Could be anything you could think of. We might need to hire an additional staff member. Last year, our driver's education car was totaled. We had to buy a new one unexpectedly. Things like those things happen throughout the course of the school year, and that's what contingencies are for. So you'll see that total other financing uses, so those transfers out and those other expenditures total some $90.6 million, 90.7 almost. And so we're looking at a total change in fund balance. In our operating funds, we have essentially a surplus of $50,000. In our non-operating funds, we have a deficit of $1.1 million. That yields a total overall deficit of $1.1 million. I would say that this budget is not a deficit budget, even though it looks that way right now. We have a $50,000 surplus in our operating funds, and the deficit in the non-operating funds are for capital expenditures that were funded in prior years that we're spending over multiple years. So essentially, we transferred money into the capital projects fund so that we would spend it over a period of multiple years. We just have to be spending more in this year than we are actually putting into that fund in terms of revenue. I hope that makes sense.
Can I ask one quick question, Tony,
Sure.
that I meant to ask you earlier, and I apologize. This one fund balance, that's all of our funds lumped in
That's
those,
everything
right?
together, yeah.
Because then later you break them down by specific funds. Okay.
And there is an asterisk there, so I love putting an asterisk because that means that I don't know something and I can't be held responsible for it. But essentially, we don't know what our beginning fund balance is because our audit is literally going on this week, and we won't have those numbers back until late September or October. So our auditors look at all of our expenditures, they look at all the things that are happening, and they make adjustments. And we don't know what those adjustments will be yet. So those beginning fund balances are estimated, and obviously, because we're starting from an estimate, we're going to be ending with an estimate in terms of fund balance. And of course, a budget is simply a plan, and a lot of things can change from between here and the end of the fiscal year. So this is simply a plan. But now I'd ask you to turn your attention to page number 12. There are two graphs on page number 12, and they summarize where our money comes from and where our money goes in terms of spending. So on page 12, in the middle of the page, there is funding sources. You can see that 83% of all of our revenues are from property taxes, and another 4% are what we call other local. So that means 87% of all the money that we will take in this year will come from the taxpayers of the school district, the citizens of Batavia. And that other 13% will come either from the state of Illinois or the federal government. Illinois happens to be, it's either 49th or 50th. It kind of bounces from year to year between which, but it's the worst state in the union in terms of funding education. It doesn't mean we spend less on education in Illinois. It just means that the state of Illinois contributes less than every other state to education. And that means that the local municipalities, the local school districts, have to pick up the slack. And so a lot of folks will say Batavia taxes are high, and it's true, they are high relative to national averages. But if you look at neighboring communities, I would argue that Batavia is getting a great return on their investment. Batavia has made a number of sacrifices for our students through referenda and simply by paying school fees over the years. And you can see that's here. You know, we're paying for the vast majority, the lion's share of the cost of educating our children. And it's not cheap. Last year, that was $12,500 per student per year that we were spending on education.
How does that compare to the state average again?
It's close to the state average. So some years we're a little bit high, and some years we're a little bit low. But we're on average, we spend very similar to the state average on expenditures per pupil. And I think we get better results than average too. So I think that's where we're getting that return on investment. So just to be clear, that other local would be other local revenues. They're primarily student registration fees and course fees, which you know, parents are paying right now as we prepare for school, and it's painful, but it's a significant portion of our budget, and we couldn't make our budget work without it. Turning our attention then to spending objects and see where our money goes. 51% in salary, 14% in benefits. But that doesn't tell the whole story, because a lot of other, we outsource a significant number of our functions in this district, which is, I would say, atypical to most districts in the area. We outsource our custodial services, we outsource our food service, and we outsource our transportation. So that means that whereas most districts are going to be spending 80 or 85% of their money directly on salary and benefits, we spend considerably less than that. But we spend the difference on services. We have a significantly higher amount of money that we spend on services. For the rest of that money that I mentioned earlier, those other tuition and debt service, it becomes 16%. So between tuition that we pay to other governmental units and the amount of money that we spend on our bonds is 16%. That leaves a very little sliver left over that I haven't spoken about. We spend about 3% on supplies, 3% on equipment, and then termination benefits and non-capitalized equipment, they don't even register as a percentage because they're so small. So that's my high-level summary of the budget, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
I think it sits with the glazed look in there.
No. And thank you for sitting down with me today, and Lisa, and working through all my minutia. This is a tentative budget in that, it's tentative in that there's some stuff we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. Is that not what's Phil?
Actually, we do know some of what
We do know some of the stuff we don't know, but some of the stuff we don't know is tentative, and we're going to post this for public review, and then we're going to come back with something harder before we vote. And I understand part of what you've been working very hard on is reclassifying items from old classifications to new classifications, which is why when I read through this and some of the percentage changes in different line items, why my eyes popped out of my head and I went, what? Whether the number went up or down. And you were very kind to clarify that stuff for me and explain how.
So if I may, just point out an example, because that's an excellent point. And I'd like to direct everybody's attention to page 18, just as an example. We're doing a number of recategorizations, and this is a good one. The bottom of page 18, you'll see a line item. It's not really a line item, but it's a summary of line items for other purchase services. Last year, we spent, in actuality, $402,000, and this year, I'm anticipating at this moment that we'll spend some $200,000. And obviously, there's a big difference there. And what I realized in looking at actual line item details is there were a considerable number of accounts that were professional development accounts that were in that other purchase services line item. So I moved those onto page 17 under professional development. So what I knew we're spending money on for professional development should be categorized as professional development. and not lumped under the other professional services that we might spend money on. Because everybody always hates other, right? They don't really know what other
Right.
is because it's not
Right.
scripted. Other means that it doesn't fit into any of the other categories that are already listed before it. So I'm trying to move out all of the others so that we get more transparent in the transactions that we have. But what that does is really skew what we spent last year to what we're going to spend, what we think we're going to spend this year in terms of that understanding. But hopefully as I clean that up, that will be a much smaller issue as the years pass. I can't get it all in one swoop here. I'm not going to get it all done this year, but we'll continue to take swipes at it each year to get it as clear as we can. So thank you, John.
And I do think you've had conversations with a number of board members and answered, everyone had to ask questions, and I know lots of people took advantage of that.
So there are a number of unknowns. I would just add there are, we don't fully know what we're going to spend on teacher salaries this year just yet. There's a number of leaves of absence that continue to come in that will significantly impact what we spend on teacher salaries. I don't have resale accounts in there for essentially all the amounts that we collect for course fees because our enrollments aren't complete yet. So as students enroll in courses, they might pay a course fee that purchases supplies for that course. I don't have the revenues or the expenditures for those amounts in there yet, although I do expect they'll be somewhere around $400,000 as they have been in previous years. I haven't kind of ratcheted that down yet. And so there's a number of other things. So I would say that most of the unknown, or the things that are up in the air, we know what they are, we just don't have good numbers to put on them just yet. But by the time the end of September rolls around, we will, and we'll be sharing various iterations of this budget with you as more information becomes available.
I did have one question for Brad, which is on page 20. The line item under supplies and materials about replacement textbooks. And that's a significant drop in that budget. Is that, we just getting better about doing stuff online? He's looking at you funny. You don't know?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I don't manage that particular account.
Oh, who?
So that, like each individual building would have textbook replacement.
Okay. Well, it's definitely going the right direction, so I'm just wondering if we're getting a side benefit here from the one-on-one thing.
Yeah, we have, like, just I can speak from my experience in our division, we have moved a ton of, our allotted budget to electronic resources because that's the most current, the most up-to-date, the most engaging content that we can provide for students, and we have spent less and less of our dollars on textbooks. And I think that's keeps us up to date because we buy a textbook, like I have elementary social studies textbooks, which are 14 years old out there, that is basically worthless now because times have changed. So.
Right. Well, it's definitely a positive direction. It's good to see it. Thanks.
One thing I wanted to thank you for, Tony, when I was looking through this is, obviously the footnotes is a great
Helps.
reflection of not only your diligence in doing this, because I could see where like your eyes would pop out where you're looking at professional development going up 112%, which is essentially 27,000, I think, but being recategorized from something else. It's creating more transparency instead of having that other account, which always brought up questions, it seemed to, our friends and neighbors, what's under other.
Right.
But, some other great things I think we should take with us out to the community when we're asked is, the cell service under communication, the travel under the mileage reimbursements and such. These are things we've been pushing forward to champion and show that we have a real diligence to wanting to make our district run as efficient as possible. And just as a side note, on the 22nd of July, the Local Government Travel Expense Control Act was passed downstate in Springfield, so that shows that we're actually ahead of the curve on some of these things, which a press release will come, number 93, that will be able to, that episode will be accounted for then. So.
I would also like to comment, Tony, I really appreciate your timeline because I know there's been concerns in the past about when we hold our public hearing. And this gives us 2 more opportunities to talk about our budget. And if anyone is interested in coming in and commenting during the public hearing, they have an opportunity to do that, and we still would have time to act on that. So come on and come on to the public hearing. So tonight, if no one has further questions, tonight our action is to adopt the tentative budget and then approve the timeline that Tony has presented in board docs.
Are these 2 separate motions or the same motion?
Would you like it to be 2 separate motions? Because I could make them 2 separate motions, but unless someone has a concern, I think we could roll it all into one.
Well, we're not able to have the board approve the budget for public display and not have it turned into the county clerk as well, right? So wouldn't it be under one umbrella?
We can adapt the tentative budget, but we could change potentially some of the details of the timeline.
Oh, okay.
Which, unless someone has a concern, I think the timeline looks good, so I would be happy to just roll it all into one unless someone has a
Yeah,
concern.
so I would think a single motion would.
Okay,
would be-
then I would entertain a motion to adopt the tentative budget and place it on public display. And then I also would, as part of that motion, adopt the timeline as presented in the board docs.
So moved.
Moved by Stu, second by Blakely. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Stu,
Yes.
Blakely,
Yes.
Dryden,
Yes.
Gaspar,
Yes.
Locke,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Drummond.
Yes. And actually, I'm going to backtrack one moment. John had brought up a good comment, and I just wanted to touch on that again, then I forgot. I know John talked to Tony and potentially Lisa about moving forward and having comparative years as we get all of this classified. And I know, Tony, that's something that will probably take a few years so that we can actually do meaningful comparisons. But we appreciate the way you're putting this together and the fact that we would be able to do that moving forward. And I just wanted to say, John, thank you for remembering that that's something that
Always glad to be a positive influence.
we're always glad when you are too.
Yeah.
So, moving on to administrative comments, Dr. Hinton.
I do have some comments. We've got a big day next Wednesday when we welcome back the students. I'll have my opportunity to welcome back the staff on August 22nd, but I won't have that opportunity to welcome back the students. So first I wanted to welcome back the students, all of them that are watching the board meeting on
I'm
the
sure we have one
18th.
watching.
We are so excited to have you, and just know that you have 600 plus adults in this community that have been getting ready for you to return to school, and we're very excited to have you, and we hope you have a great year and you learn and you grow. Also, just the community in general, I just did do a BATV update, but I just wanted to plug it again for those of the community members that are watching and staying interested with the board. I did have a conversation with John about finding ways to reach out and communicate with those people that don't have students in the district, so I would also challenge them to, if you're watching this, that means you are paying attention to the school district, but there's some great positive news that is out there that we have our communications director. If you're not, you can follow us on Twitter or Facebook, but if you're not on those, you can go to our website and just click on news, I think is in the upper right-hand corner, and there's some great stories about the things that our students are doing and our staff as well, and it'll make you feel good about this town that you live in. And also to parents, I know last time Jason threw out the challenge to the middle school about parents being involved, and I know that the principals take that very seriously, so parents, welcome back to school year, and hopefully you find a way to be welcomed into the school and become involved. I know there's plenty of opportunities out there. So have a great year.
Thanks, Lisa. Right down with Sue, board member comment.
I just would like to welcome all the students and parents and staff back to school. Hope everyone has a great school year. I would also like to remind everyone about the Hall of Honor induction ceremony on September 15th. You can find more information on the BPS 101 website. Should be a wonderful school year.
Chris?
First, I want to apologize for being late. Went back from my son's soccer practice. Traffic was a little bit worse than I thought.
I'm actually pleased to know that 2 of our men had childcare issues. It shows you it's very forward.
It is
50%.
2016. We all share duties.
I am proud to sit at this table with you guys.
I want to say welcome back to all the students, teachers, staff, and parents who are probably happy that their kids are going back to school. And going on Lisa's comments, go volunteer. I know that there are lots of opportunities out there, both at the elementary and middle school, and probably at the high school level. I haven't got their kids there yet, but I'm assuming that there's plenty of opportunities there. So if you want to get involved, go out there and get involved. And I want to thank all the community members that have reached out to me personally in the past and to the board in general, and to encourage you to keep doing so. And that's it.
Thanks, Christina. Just have a good beginning of the school year.
Jason?
I'll echo the sentiments from everyone else. Welcome back, students and staff. Looking forward to it, although my kids actually are. So, you know, I'm sure not everyone is, but it's good to get them back to going. Nothing really to comment on with city ongoing stuff. Nothing that's really district dotted line connecting, so nothing there. EMAB, the Education Matters Advisory Board. You know, they got the Governor's Funding Reform Commission is set to meet for the first time tomorrow. One of the things I was kind of dismayed to see is it's comprised mostly of legislators, and they advertise that as being a go team type thing, where I feel that there should be more involvement of our educators and our union presidents and, you know, human resources and all these other aspects as well. So maybe you can reach out to these folks once their names are listed. Everything else, again, in looking at my last couple of legislative reports that I've been getting, we are ahead of the curve on a lot of stuff that they're finally passing into law. Whether it's, you know, our travel, meal, lodging reimbursement criteria, whether it's our building and physical plant securities, are incorporating like security planning for See Here, Speak Up. These are things that, you know, we've all been already incorporating into our policy, as well as having open discussions on for the last year plus. And with all of the laws that seem to come across, nothing really seems harsh towards us, so I'm happy to see that. But if you guys ever have an issue that you'd like me to bring up to our representatives that I do speak with in face-to-face or by call, or I can email them as well, I'd be happy to, you know, bend their ear and let them know some of our concerns as well. And go Bulldogs.
John Dryden?
I socialize with a lot of teachers, and I have to tell you that they're pretty giddy about getting going, you know. And I kind of remember this couple, you know, the first several weeks of school, that kind of honeymoon feeling between the students and the teacher, and everything goes gangbusters. And so I envy you guys that process. I mean, that's such a cool thing, getting back, getting down, buckling in, good time. To the BEA, we did discuss, and I did discuss last meeting here, about the fact that the activity funds process didn't go very well. We have acknowledged that we could have done that better, and it was clumsy at best, and I understand that we lost some trust, and yeah, it was clumsy, and I'm sorry how it proceeded. You know, we'll do better. We'll do better. And it was one of those things where everybody's motivations were good and just didn't get, you know, maybe counted correctly. But I wish you guys the best for the year, and looking forward to working with you and going into negotiating year, and hoping that we're all tugging in the same direction. So, thanks.
John Gaspar?
I just want to say, Amy, congratulations on your adventures this summer. And there's a lot of hard work and a lot of things you do, and you know what you put into it. So thank you. Brad, I want to thank you for the work that you're going to do. I know the full-day kindergarten is one of the things we've talked about and all that, and I know we're going to do it the right way. So take your time. And Tony, as always, I know you're trying to streamline this, and it's going to take time, and it's a vast improvement. So I want to just put credit where it's due, and you're doing a great job. So, and the transparency is there, as it's starting to be, as Jason said, with the footnotes and everything, I think. And you had said this when you first took this job, it was going to take time, and I know you're working very hard on it. And Steve, congratulations on getting the staff in order with the hiring and everything, and Lisa, so keeping them on their toes and everything. And I would welcome back all the teachers and the kids, and hopefully we have a good year, and looking forward to working on any of the problems we have to solve in a cordial way. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I do not think I can improve on any of the sentiments you expressed, so I will just move on to, we do have one item for closed session tonight. We will not be taking any action after closed session, but I would entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session for the purpose of collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees.
So moved.
Oh, second.
Sorry.
Moved by Stoops, seconded by Dragon.
Sorry. All right.
Please call the roll.
Stoops.
Yes.
Lakeman.
Yeah.
Dryden.
Yes.
Gaspar.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Lowe.
Yes.
Drummond.
Yes. Do you need, anybody need a couple minutes for a break?
Yes, I would like one.
All right.